What's going on, gamers? So we got a video here that's going to be very interesting. I didn't expect to react to this when I woke up this morning, but we have, Puertorock, who's a Sony fanboy, getting in a debate with Josh Edits, who actually took the debate on. He's not the type to, do that type of content like I do and Porto. He's more like editing, entertainment. He does a really good job with editing. Now, he took on something that I seen where it's like, he's not really the type to really like tell you everything about Nintendo. Now, I'm going to correct it here because I like correcting and giving people the truth here. Porto challenges him. They probably got into some beef, it seems like. And he tries to convince people that PlayStation dominated the 90s to a certain extent. It's like, no, they did not. Now, the PS1 did dominate as a console on a TV. But one thing that people don't understand is that Nintendo had four markets in the 90s. You still had the NES market running, you had the SNES market running, you had the Game Boy market running, and the 64 market running. Sony only had PS1. In the 90s, Nintendo completely dominated. Big time, definitely with Pokemon. And the Game Boy selling 118 million, as I said here. So I'm gonna tell you why I said this. So right here, let's take a look at this, and we're gonna get into this, y'all. It says the Game Boy sold 118 million, and Pokemon dominated while Nintendo 64 sold two. He's projected a one-dimensional plane. Sony only had one console, leeching off the successor of others and trying to lock devs games to grow up on NES and SNES. There, like Square Enix, Capcom, all that. That's what they were doing. Try to grab a bunch of people and then promote the CD trend. Nintendo sold more, ran two markets simultaneously. They did. They were running the Game Boy and running the 64 market. And if people want to argue with you guys, remember this: the handheld is a console. It's just not docked to a TV. I've had some people that try to escape this because they can't face the total reality that Nintendo completely dominates Sony in totality. We ready? What does this say right here? Yes, a handheld game console is a type of console unit. Handhelds are specifically designed to be portable and played on the go, unlike traditional home consoles. So home consoles, but a handheld is still a console, which are typically used as a console that's used for a TV. A handheld is a console that can be used off of a TV. These people don't understand. It's still publishing and it's still development. So in totality, when Nintendo was reporting their fiscal results, the stocks were, Wall Street would ask you, what is your total profit? What did your hardware make and your software make in total? Because I asked what Nintendo is doing publishing and development, and here are the total results. So handheld combined, because it's still money, $50 on a handheld, it's $50 on a console. So they were combining all that, and they were literally embarrassing the industry. You want me to tell you why Sony was getting embarrassed? There ain't no microtransactions to hide behind. All that idle microtransactions crap you see today for revenue. It was just straight hardware sales and straight software sales. And guess what? They got their ass handed to them. So let me go ahead and correct this guy too. So we're going to get to that. Let's listen to this. We ready?
Are you done with the points or?
Because
I don't want to interrupt your train of thought.
I got several examples.
Okay, can I address your first two points? Because
Yeah, and challenge me, bro. Come challenge me. I guarantee you, you're not gonna beat me because I know what I'm talking about here. I've done this plenty of times. I don't lose to no PlayStation fanboy.
If you release 10
you guys have seen it. I beat him on the Xbox side.
What your first point was. So your first point, PS4 dominating Xbox One. I'm not sure why you're trying to ensue, but let me ask you this. Didn't PS2 dominate the hell out of the OG Xbox? It did, right?
Yeah, because they were new to the market.
Okay, but
that's the same thing. That's the same argument with like a new console maker coming into. They would sell less.
Okay, but got it. But they did. Like PS2 just no, that's not true. Because didn't PS1 dominate N64?
In a certain sense, it did because Nintendo was being stupid. They literally make it ridiculous for third-party developers. That's their fault. It's not Sony's fault. Nintendo could have took a different route. I will say that. You know what I mean? Like, they're amazing, but when it comes to third-party developer support, I would have to say that they've always made it difficult. Even with the GameCube. Like, and they do this, and you guys know this. They could sell more, but this company sometimes is weird. I'm like, why are you doing this? You could actually easily just dominate even more, but they don't because they just want to, I guess, be who they are. Nintendo's always been a weird company. But they're the best, though, but they're still a little bit off because I'm like, wait, why are you guys doing that? I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to because it's like, why? You know what I mean? Everybody's always had this feeling about Nintendo, you know what I mean? And you just got to be honest about it. But the thing with Porto is that he's not understanding that, dude, there's a handheld market. And as a matter of fact, the first Game Boy sold 118 million. The second one did not sell more, but they ended up getting to the DS at 154 million. That type of subject is kind of like, it's whatever, you know what I mean? It's not really something that is going to guarantee you anything.
In fact, what was the first console to sell 100 million?
The Game Boy. So I closed that out because we know that it's a console unit, the Game Boy. So are we ready? All right. Look at these sales. All right, so Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue sold 31 million in the 90s. That's right. And Mario sold 40 million at NES. Yeah, they've been doing this. Pokemon Yellow sold 14.6 million. Tetris sold 35 million. Pokemon Generation 2 sold 29 million. Pokemon Gold and Silver sold 23 million. And that's why, remember I told you they were dominating? You ain't had no microtransactions. You use this. Pokemon Crystal, Super Mario Land, 18 million. Super Mario Land 2, 11.1 million. This is in the 90s. And all these 5 millions across. PlayStation, 10 million. Sony's game, actually. Final Fantasy 7, somebody else's game. I told that was the 64 game, by the way, 10 million. Gran Turismo 2, 9 million. GT was dominant in the 90s. I'm telling you, it was a good racer. Like, you gotta give it credit. Final Fantasy again, Tekken again. See, these all used to be with Nintendo. Crash Bandicoot 2, that was Naughty Dog. So we see Sony actually had not too bad of a sales, but once again, the Game Boy sales were just obliterating. The Pokemon is too overpowered. Just by itself, it's obliterating everything. So Nintendo was outselling them easily again. You see what I'm saying? And then these are a ton of other people's games. Great games, though, you know what I mean? But going over to the 64, 11.9 million for Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, 10 million, but 64 only sold like what? 35, 36, 37 million. But it combined with the Game Boy, it almost sold 150 something million. I'm 167 million in total. That's what I mean. And then when you combine these sales together on both platforms, as I said, they have two markets. They're running both markets. And they had the highest Metacritics. They won Game of the Years. Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, 99 Metacritic. They were winning in all departments. Super Nintendo, 20 million on Super Mario World. SNES, a regular Nintendo, though, the first Mario sold 40 million. But going over to Game Boy sales, right? 118.69 million. Do we see this? The PlayStation did very well too. It sold 100 million. But basically what I'm saying is that if you combine the Nintendo totality, yeah, they won. Because they were still getting sales on SNES too, and SNES games and NES. Like all together, Sony couldn't compete. So the thing that he asked is right here in front of him, 118 million. The Game Boy was the first console to do it. It wasn't a PlayStation 1. They came out after the Game Boy. Unless I'm a little bit off, right? Let's see. Game Boy. What was the release date of the Game Boy, y'all? 1989. There was no such thing as no PlayStation. PlayStation 1 did not come till 1994. But you want to know what? That 1994? I think was in Japan, and it came later on over here. Why did they remove yeah, here we go. This will help out. There we go. Japan, it was in 1994. The United States did not get it till almost 1996. It was September 9th, 1995. It was almost a year later. 1996 in New Zealand. So that was 6 years after. And to get to the 100 million, you needed years to pass by. They needed to get closer to the 2000 era. So who sold 100 million first? Nintendo did.
Xbox One. I'm not sure why you're trying to ensue, but let me ask you this. Hate the hell out of the OG Xbox? It did, right?
Yeah, because they were new to the market.
Okay,
Like,
but
that's the same thing. That's the same argument with like a new console maker coming into. They would sell less.
Okay, but got it. But they did. Like PS2 just no, that's not true. Because didn't PS1 dominate N64?
And got dominated by Game Boy and Nintendo in totality. But head to head, yes. Because Nintendo's being dumb. Like sales, yeah. Games, no.
In fact, what was the first console to sell 100 million?
We got our answer to that now.
Do you know?
He don't know either.
Hello?
That's the funny part. He's gonna watch the video and figure out.
You know what I mean? So going back. So you're saying, because you said it's a new console, it'll sell less. What was the first console to sell 100 million?
Game Boy.
What was the first console
to sell 100 million?
This is the thing, though, bro.
You don't even see it coming.
Just answer the question.
It's a dying industry practice.
Listen, okay,
this
just answer the question.
I have no idea, but I have
the PlayStation 1, which was a brand new.
Wrong, Pony. The Game Boy. Like you said, what is the first home console on a TV? That would have made sense, but yeah, they're coming. That's a hit on this account. Oh, the publishing and development and the money doesn't count. Yeah, you see that they're gonna try, but they always try this, by the way, because they can't face the totality. They only want to feed you a little point of view.
Console, and it killed the N64,
which undersold everything.
It didn't. Nintendo did that to themselves. Trust me, I was there. They made it difficult. See, Sony has all those third party because Nintendo did that. They drove them away before, but that was after though. After the NES, SNES aspect, Sony money had a lot of stuff. That was different. After that, yeah, Nintendo started treating third party developers differently. When NES and SNES was there, it was amazing. But after that, it's their fault.
Listen, why undersold everything?
The PlayStation, like they came out with the famous 2.
The what?
And they all undercut Sega and Nintendo, I think.
No, yeah, but listen to what I'm saying.
Definitely Sega.
Listen, your argument of, new consoles sell less, that's not necessarily true. PlayStation 1 was a new console, and it was the first to actually sell 100 million, and it beat the brakes out of the N64 and the Sega Saturn, which were the more well-known consoles. So you could be successful dominating out the gate.
More faith.
Back then, yes, you try to do that now, that's not going to work. It's not possible. Not happening.
In the industry than I have.
Okay, that's
because
fine.
I don't think a new console maker comes into this market.
I'm not
saying.
That's not going to happen. Not right now. Apple's going to try and they're going to fail. Everybody's tried it. The console entry is not something you come in and put a bunch of money there and hit the buy button. But anyways, where Sony won a console was the PS2 and the PS1. After that, they never won again. Nintendo still beat them in totality, though. You see what I mean? So, like, even when they came out with the GameCube, the Game Boy Advanced or whatever, so like 80 or 90 million or whatever. And then they had the DS that sold 154 million. Every time Sony came in the hand, they got their ass handed to them. They won with the PS2. Give them credit for their hardware sales, yeah. And a bunch of locked games. But out of that, Nintendo won their war NES-wise, SNES against Sega, Game Boy, anything Sony tried handheld, they won. They beat them in the Wii era, the PS3. The Wii sold 100-something million, and DS sold 250-something million. They beat them in 2 markets simultaneously. They beat them before. Sony won with the PS1 against the 64, PS2 against the GameCube, yes, but that's it. But Nintendo beat them with the Switch. They're going to beat them with the Switch 2. They beat them with the Game Boy. You see what I mean? They beat them with the Game Boy Advance. They beat them with the DS. They beat them with the Wii. Nintendo has beat them way more times. Sony has 2 victories. You know what I mean? And I give them that, you know what I mean? And I own all. But outside of that, they don't have enough, though. Like, because they don't have their own games. Nintendo in totality wins because it's like grabbing Nintendo's publishing all the way from NES and grabbing their development all the way from NES all the way up to now. When you look at the total resume of how much Pokemon has done for the entire industry, how much Mario has done for the entire industry, Zelda, all the sales they've done, all third party, from the beginning to the end, no, man. Because we're talking, because you said Nintendo, so I said publishing and development. Sony, publishing and development. That's what you guys are doing for the industry. Sony don't even come close. And every time I get in a debate with a PlayStation fanboy about this, they get mad and get frustrated. They'll start grabbing third-party games and say, what are you doing? I said, Sony. Don't grab Rockstar. That's Rockstar. That's their publishing and development. They're just putting it on their platform. Tell me what Sony is doing first party, right? Because let me show you what I mean, y'all. Okay, so look, PS4 software sales. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with PlayStation software sales. By the way, you have to find this shit. So this is what I did. Nintendo's you can pull right up. Sony hides this for one specific reason, and it's because you're going to see Nintendo numbers. All right. So their best-selling game is Marvel Spider-Man at 22.6 million during the PS4, which is good. You know what I mean? Because if we look at Xbox One, Microsoft started hiding numbers though, which is not good. That's what I mean by like, see, they kind of put it off the front page. Them and Sony do this bullcrap. I don't know why. Oh, there it is again. It's not even on the page. Did Microsoft take it off? Xbox One software sales wiki. Yeah, see? They don't want you to see that shit. And I kind of find that shady. So if we go to Nintendo Switch, I don't even need to type wiki. This is how you know they're not. See, it's right there on the front page. This is the confidence that they have. Okay, so let's go to PlayStation. 22.68 million. This is what I mean by they can't compete with them. 68 million. Get smoked. Number 2, God of War, 21. Number 2, Animal Crossing, almost 50 million. At least these. Well, this is Insomniac Games with who they not GTA. Come on, man. Why? You see that? I mean, that's somebody else's game. Number 3, Smash Brothers, 36. That's Nintendo's game. 0.24 million. Horizon Zero Dawn, 19.29 million. That's Sony's. Legend of Zelda, 32.81 million. You can't mess with Zelda. Not even close. Mario Odyssey, 30 million or 29. What's after that? Uncharted, that's their game. 18.65 million. Then Last of Us, 18.63 million. 26.79 million. Do you see this is not a comparison? But Sony's still doing good. You know what I mean? They stumped Microsoft that gen. Then Pokemon, almost 27 million on both games. Let's see what Sony's doing after that. Minecraft, Call of Duty. What are these other people's games? Red Dead, Call of Duty. You see, now it's just a bunch of third-party games. It's like, yeah, but that sells on PC too, and I can play that better on PC. Your next game is Last of Us 2 at 10 million. So you get the point? Look at Nintendo. It's still all their games. You're seeing nothing but publishing by Nintendo, mostly. Look at that, 68, almost 50 million, 36. Like, the PlayStation 4 was Sony's best software selling. Like, first party, they've never had these type of sales. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we finally get to Gran Turismo, that's 6. But they can't compare to what Nindy's doing, though. But these were still good, though. So this just gives you the idea of what I say they always beat them. Like, and the Switch is at 153 million, the PlayStation's at 117 million. The Switch 2 will beat the PS5. So let me know what you guys think about this. I wanted to give you guys some stats. I wanted to check him because he thinks he's over there and Sony's, you know how they get. And it's like, sorry, but I'm gonna have to put you in your place. If you want to challenge me, come challenge me. But guess what? The truth is right there in front of you. How you gonna beat this? Let me know. All right, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Later.